everyone, and welcome to the Big Brother Canada 11 Stock Watch Roundtable podcast. I'm your host, Taran Armstrong, and we are here, of course, to talk about everything that we are seeing on the Big Brother Canada 11 drops that we get. And we will rate the players based off of those drops on how well we think they're doing from 1 to 10. It's going to be a good time. Those ratings will then influence the price that you can then buy and sell shares of these players over at realitystockwatch.com. With me to talk through this week in Big Brother Canada is Mary. How you doing, Mary?
Doing good. It's going. I feel like we've powered through so far most of this season, despite the challenging times. And boy, do the times just keep getting challenging when your faves are not looking good.
Not looking good. Well, also with us tonight is Melissa. How you doing, Melissa?
I'm doing well. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I don't know. I don't know how to rate anyone this week. So, I'm just going to kind of wing it and just see what happens.
Let's see what happens. Well, we do have a bit to talk about here. Of course, the last time we spoke, we had just had Santina leave, and it was looking a little dicey for Kuzi as she was going up on the block against Hope. Now, Kuzi did end up surviving the block, although we did find out just today on the drop that the votes were actually there to take her out, and all that needed to happen was for the two groups of people to talk about doing it, because they both wanted to. They just didn't think the other group would. And so those 2 days of just absolute nothing that we got on the drops were actually very necessary for Kuzi's survival. But she made it through that week, only to land in this week where Renee won the HOH.
Okay.
It goes on so long.
It sounds like a dolphin. And thank God I have headphones on and my dogs can't hear that, because they would be going absolutely nuts right now.
The screaming is higher pitched than the bleeping.
It really is. You can't tell what's a bleep, what's a scream. It's you know what? She's happy. We'll let her be happy.
Yeah.
Either she's happy or she's terrified and being murdered. I don't know.
She finally unpissed herself is what happened.
I don't know about that one.
So Renee won the HOH. She's targeting Ty. She nominated Ty and Anika for eviction. However, Ty won the veto again. 4th week in a row that Ty has been immune. And that leaves Anika on the block against the replacement for Ty. And as of right now, it is looking like the replacement is going to be Kuzi. If Kuzi goes up on the block, she will almost certainly go home, or at least to jury. And so for the 2nd week in a row, things are not looking great for Kuz.
Nope.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a chance she could pull it out. There's a chance. But I do feel like, based on what happened when she went on the block last week, and just the way that she strategized there, and the way she campaigned there, or I guess tried to guilt trip Cece, I
Oh no.
Is that me, Mary?
No, it's not just you.
That's Melissa.
Yeah.
What do you think she's trying to say, Mary?
I think that she's trying to say that, based on what we saw last time Kuzi was on the block and her way of campaigning and guilt tripping to try and just get the votes to stay, that worked. And as we found out, barely, because the Hope wasn't really trying that hard to stay himself. When you have the other person fighting and I think you can kind of give yourself enough. Oh, now there's 2 Melissas. Now that's fun.
Okay, that's like creepy.
I don't want to get rid of the other
I
one
don't
because it's funny.
Which one's real?
Oh, there she is.
Well, kind of liked it.
I'll
Yeah,
just
that
pop up in each.
uh that you can kind of come up with some reasons for why, okay, maybe Hope's going to be a comp threat, like maybe, he's just so likable or whatever. You can come up with reasons why you would want to vote Hope out over Kuzi, but if it's Kuzi and Anika, it's a lot more difficult to not just say, okay, it's the time.
Yeah, to be clear, with Kuzi on the block, she would need the girly pops to change their mind. She would need Claudia, Shania, and likely Renee. All three of them, although theoretically she could get Claudia, Shania, and Ty. But basically she needs Claudia and Shania, who have been trying to get Kuzi out for weeks and want to work with Anika. So
really her only chance is to not get on the block in the first place.
yeah.
And I think that she could come up with a couple arguments there to Renee. I know you talked through some of that this morning about the things she is trying, the things that Ty is suggesting she try. I think the biggest one that could potentially work is she would somehow need to know that there is an alliance between Claudia and Shania and Daniel and Kuzi. And Daniel and Anika, and tell that to Renee. Have Renee believe it and say, Renee, we already know that the other 4 are going to have a hard time not wanting to keep each other instead of you. And even press it more to, convince her of that, and then say, you need me to be someone fighting your corner. I promise I won't, put you up, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that there is like a very small chance she could try that, but that seems to be the way she would have to go. And that involves a lot of knowing things that she might not know. And then also probably on Kuzi's part, a willingness to convincingly throw Daniel and Nika under the bus and potentially even sell to Renee that she would vote them out over some of the other girly pops.
Yeah, I think that because I think the biggest thing that people have mentioned is she could use the fact that Daniel won the veto and used it on Ty. The problem with that, in my eyes, is that because like there is, I think the biggest way for her to convince Renee that she should stay and that one of Daniel or Anika should go is by convincing Renee that Daniel and Anika are actually working with Ty and that they won't target Ty next week, because Renee is banking on the fact that everyone is targeting Ty next week. And I think part of the reason why Kuzi's in trouble is because she's probably the least likely person to target Ty at this point. And so if Kuzi is able to go to Renee and say, hey, just so you know, Daniel and Ty, they have a great relationship. He even used the veto on Ty once upon a time. That was him. That could help. But currently, Ty is campaigning for Kuzi, which completely undermines the entire selling point, which she hasn't even tried to sell, by the way. But if she were to try to sell it, it wouldn't, I don't think, land, because if Ty is campaigning for you and against Daniel and Anika, then it doesn't exactly sell that he's working with Daniel and Anika. If Kuzi and Ty really wanted her to stay, he would fake campaign for Kuzi to go, because that I think would actually make a little bit of a difference. And usually what Ty wants, the girly pops want the opposite. So if Ty starts campaigning all of a sudden for Kuzi out, I want to work with I think we should keep Daniel and Anika, it might scare them a little bit. Like, wait a minute, why is he so adamant about this? Why is he wanting to keep them? So that's what I would suggest. I think Ty is a big difference maker here.
Which would also involve Ty and or Kuzi knowing that is what the girls would need to hear. So
yeah, this is not going to happen, just to be clear. If we're coming up with ways for it to happen.
Yeah, I don't know how much you guys got before I fell off the face of the earth, but I did not think that Kuzi did a great job campaigning last week when she was like, I guess, like trying to guilt trip Claudia. Like it just didn't come off really as like a guilt trip. It came off more of like accusatory and like, you're stupid for doing this, when really like it just didn't really make sense. I mean, Daniel's sitting there telling Cece, you know, I saved you guys. Look what I did. And then, you know, I guess Kuzi's just getting mad saying, well, Daniel didn't actually do that. It's like, well, talk to Daniel about this, because this is what he's telling us. He's telling us that he's the one who saved us. And just because it's your HOH doesn't mean anything. You know, you can't dictate who picks who. And, you know, using that sort of like argument of like, you know, I was the HOH. It's like, yeah, well, we didn't have a normal week. We ended up doing some fatal feast thing that you didn't have any control over. So I just feel like I wasn't too impressed with that campaigning. And if anything, if I'm Cece and I'm hearing that, I'd be like, yeah, actually, you do need to go now, because now you're mad at me and this relationship is soured. You know, this isn't good for me moving forward. So I'm fine if you leave. And so if it's that sort of campaigning again this week, I just don't see a chance that Kuzi stays.
Yeah. We should also talk about the fact that Kuzi apparently could have won this veto, and instead went for a. And this is what really gets me. It wasn't even like a 5K prize.
Yeah, like take away taxes and you end up with like half of that, maybe less. It's like, oh my God,
Well,
you could have
Canada
won.
doesn't have the taxes, right? That's one of the
I don't know.
Canadian things.
No, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. But God, yeah, it's like, it's so depressing, especially now knowing, you know, that all the jury members are saying that they would vote for Kuzi to win. It's just like, if she can just make it to the end, she's got this. And that's just, you know, really kind of kills her chance to make it to the end.
Yeah, I mean, I get it, and she explained to Claudia like that money means a lot to her family. Like, I get it, but at the same time, there's a
But
big
so does the
difference.
prize money.
There's a big difference between 1 and 100 when it comes to thousands, and being safe this week could have made a huge difference, you know? Like, I don't know. I just, yeah, I can't co-sign the move for sure here. It's just like, I mean, Kuzi, despite not being in the best position, absolutely was still in it with a chance to win if she survives this week. Like, there's a lot of things that could happen. The girly pops are still a big threat to Daniel and Anika that they might have to deal with. She's got just a few more competitions to win out from there. And with Ty gone, she has a great chance to do so. And she just auto wins in the finals. So, like, come on.
Yeah, I know that sometimes people can say that this sounds like that we're only saying it in retrospect, but really, ever since the safety chain, the crown, and by extension Kuzi, as the maybe if not the leader of the crown, the person who everyone in the crown was giving credit to the most for playing the best game, started to really show cracks in her understanding of the house and how to set herself up best for getting to the end. Because I said this after the eviction episode, but I'll try to summarize what my thoughts were on that again here. It's not enough to just have numbers in an alliance. You need to also make sure that you set yourself up for, if no one in your alliance gets power, to still have outs. And they didn't do that by taking out one of the only people who wasn't in the opposing alliance. So during the safety chain. Or sorry, they didn't do that because they did take out that person. You need to keep the people around. People talk about you don't like the floaters. You got to keep the floaters around sometimes. It's good to have someone who is the enemy of your enemy who's not you left in the game. Because if it's just you and your enemy, if it's straight up two sides, and it's not enough to have one person in the middle like Ty, because if they win the veto like they continue to do, you have no one else to put on the block. And so that's the situation that the crown put themselves in. And there are other ways out of this if they had, even after getting Santina out, that they just didn't think about. Things like you need to then destroy the other alliance, separate them into two groups. You need to really, really get Claudia and Shania to get Renee on the outs. How can you do that? Befriend Renee. Try to get her to think that she's in your group now, so that the other two girls don't want you there. I mean, like anything, throw anything at the wall, try anything to cause chaos, because a lot of times the opposing alliance can fall apart, but they didn't do that. So I know that this is like, this is in the past, these are mistakes they made, but because of that, you see those kind of mistakes, and then you see someone do something like, I don't know if it's because she was cocky or what, but going for the money in a must-win veto for yourself, it just shows a lack of, I don't know, full understanding of her position in the game.
And also, with Kuzi, taking your foot off the gas enough that people in your alliance and the other alliance are making separate alliances, like the fact that they're starting to pair up on their own and do their own thing is not great. And Kuzi doesn't have any of that with anybody. So, what is she doing? She has hope, but now she doesn't have hope. And then she sort of has ties sometimes, and that doesn't really count. And she had good relationship with, maybe Claudia a little bit, but then she, when Claudia ends up putting her on the block, it kind of, that falls apart. She doesn't really have any other relationships going on aside from her, the Shady Bunch alliance. But even then, they're working together more than they're working with her, and they're working with the other side as well. So she's just not, she got in the alliance, but then didn't think really to, work all the angles within the alliance and without or outside of the alliance, in order to ensure that she is in the best spot moving forward. Not great, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair to Kuzi, her and the Crown and the Shady Bunch have basically encountered worst case scenario after worst case scenario after worst case scenario when it came to these comp wins. But the problem is that you do have to account for that, and that's how Daniel has been playing, right? Like Daniel has been accounting for worst case scenario. He's been making these side deals. He's been positioning himself in a spot where he should be good if all of these things happen, and they have. And he's still should be sitting okay for now, because of that. And so I do want to point out that there are a lot of players, a lot of very successful players that have made somewhat similar mistakes that Kuzi has, but things never really went wrong for them. And so it turned out fine, and you kind of forget about them. But this is why we harp on these mistakes sometimes, even though they never pan out, because sometimes they do. And they come back and they bite you real hard. And that's, I think, what's happening here with Kuzi.
Yeah, for sure. And to be fair, it's not that I think Kuzi is a horrible player or anything, but just making, some bad calls in this situation that she's found herself in. So, yeah, like you said, if everything worked out for her and the Crown was winning every competition, then she'd probably be, sitting in a really great spot right now. And we'd be saying so. But, at this point, it's just those things have happened. And the way that she has dealt with that has not necessarily been the best. And that's just where we are.
Yeah, I mean, in a world where Jonathan and Hope and Kuzi just beast out the competitions from Final 10 on or whatever, which is not unheard of. I mean, Pretty Boys, I mean, lots of successful alliances basically did that. She's perhaps one of the more dominant winners of the show, right? Because Jonathan and Hope probably both take her to the end. Daniel and Anika probably can't get around the competition force that is the three of them. And she just wins unanimously to people that were all taking her. And it's whoa, this is a ridiculous game. But they didn't win the comps. Ty and the Girly Pops have won 7 of the last 8 competitions. And so instead, we're here.
And I don't even think that makes them a bad alliance. Usually when I think of bad alliances, I think of alliances that got the wool pulled over their eyes from another side, or they fought amongst themselves and purposefully voted each other out, kind of thing. They, in terms of being aligned to each other, they were pretty strong. They just couldn't win the comps when they needed to. But I don't think that they necessarily set themselves up for the most success in a time when they had power. And then from Kuzi's point of view, I also think about how, like, when you look at an alliance like Faute or something, part of the reason that they kept getting their own numbers knocked out had to do with the fact that they couldn't 100% clearly see the shape of the other alliance. They thought, well, yeah, like they're kind of together, but like maybe I have a thing with this person, maybe I have a thing with this person. Kuzi and the Crown know exactly the layout of the rest of the house. They know, they're aware of it. And so that's why I'm judging them a little harder, just because it's not like one of these situations where, oh, we see it, but they don't see it. They see at least who is aligned.
Yeah, I mean, look, listen. Say what you want about Faute, but they landed a couple hits. You know, like they landed a couple. It wasn't until Fessy that they hit one of their own, and that's essentially what Kuzi did. Like, Kuzi really did kind of pull a Fessy by targeting Santina in the same way that Fessy targeted Scotty, as like new quote unquote neutral parties that were actually on their side. And so, you know, it took a bit more convincing to get Scotty targeted, apparently, but, you know, it is Faute, you know, they had some strengths. They could win comps.
And I don't fault Kuzi for being out in front. Normally, my philosophy when it comes to wanting to win a game is like, if you're in the position where you've won a couple things, or people already start to perceive you as, you know, the strategist, the queen, all these things that we're hearing her alliance say as they get voted out, then just at that point, you just own it. You say, yep, I'm, you know, this is who I am. Maybe you try to play the I'll be a shield, I'll be a target in front of you, whatever kind of card. But I don't fault her for that. And I know that it's easy for people like Anika and Daniel, who are also playing pretty well, to just say like, oh, well, I can just kind of hide back here behind Kuzi. But I think if you know, if they were to get to the end, the three of them, Kuzi's got the votes against either of the other two. So she has that position, which is nice. I don't think that there was any chance, unless she did it a really long time ago, that she could have like taken the target off herself. Like, I think she was always going to be the first of her and Daniel and Anika to go for a number of reasons. Not the least of which is that Daniel and Anika formed a two a long time ago, with when she started being in the front. If she was going to prevent that, she needed to lock in a two with one of them way, way, way earlier, where that person was going to be doing everything they could to try and save her in this moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think it's also worth pointing out, because I'm still seeing this, and this is probably a result of there being no live feeds, the fact that this narrative still exists, but like there's still a lot of people talking about like, well, there's different variations of it, but one is this is all Daniel's fault for using the veto on Ty against everybody's wishes, which is very clearly not the case. Two is this is their collective fault for using the veto on Ty when he would have been voted out, which is also not the case. The veto had nothing to do with it. Ty was staying regardless as of the time that they used the veto, and I don't see him having gone home there because the girly pops didn't want him to leave, and at that point they were sort of like back and forth, and basically it didn't really matter what the girly pops wanted, but the Crown wanted him to stay, and in particular the Shady Bunch wanted him to stay, and when it came to that decision, if we go back and take a look at that decision, I think they still made the right call in both keeping him and using the veto on him, because at the time, Dan was outperforming Ty in competitions. If we look at the next HOH competition, I'm almost certain that Dan would have smoked both Ty and Hope in that endurance comp, and so he would have won. And the difference between Ty and Dan when it came to their allegiance in the house is that Ty actually targeted the girly pops, whereas Ty would have been a number for them guaranteed. He was locked in with Shania. Ty actively targets Renee The only reason it doesn't land is because he's also a dum-dum and he picked Shania for the veto competition. And then the girly pops and Ty are still shooting at each other. And the only reason it's not landing is because, again, the way the comps are like panning out, where the girly pops are winning HOH, Ty's winning veto. And so the shot's having to land elsewhere. But if this were Dan, the girly pops wouldn't be taking a shot at him at all. They would be targeting straight at the Crown and the Shady Bunch. And Dan would also be targeting straight at the Crown and the Shady Bunch. So it would be a much worse scenario with Dan in the game. I think they made the right call to keep Ty around with the knowledge that they had and with, knowledge that we have now. And then using the veto on him, given that he was staying already, just further helped solidify that he would turn on the girly pops, even though he shouldn't have. So I just let's move on from the veto situation, because that was not the decision, in my opinion. The decision point here, well, there were two. One is it's Ty's fault. And so by picking Shania, he actually helped himself because it forced him to make a better move than what he was going to do. And we talked about that. Both Canada and his own choice forced him into taking out Jonathan, which was great for him. And then taking out Santina in the safety chain, which I think is the real downfall here for them as they continue to move forward. So I just needed to get that off my chest because I continue to see it all over the place.
No, it's true. And I do think that, taking out Santina was by far the worst move for them. I just feel like it just doesn't make any sense why they would use that opportunity to take out someone who was basically alone instead of, and who also was willing to work with them and who was interested in working with them. It just seems it's a bad call. And I think, as much as it was Kuzi's plan or whatever, Daniel and Anika went along with it. So I just think that kind of, they should have taken a shot at one of the girly pops when they had the chance. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. Or even Ty, I guess, because Ty wins a lot. So it's you either get him out the second you can at this fatal feast thing, or, which they really couldn't vote him out, but whatever. Or he possibly gets all the way to the end just by winning. And that's kind of scary because he's not really working with anyone and you don't really know what he's going to do with all those wins. So.
So let's talk a little bit about the survey that I released today. I asked the audience to rate the episodes of Big Brother Canada this week, and the rating continues to rise. The episodes finally broke the 5 barrier, a 5.2 for the episodes this week. I did enjoy the first bit from the safety chain episode, I will say. The other episodes, Wednesday, I did not enjoy. The back part of the fatal feast, I did not enjoy. And then most of the Thursday episode, I thought was fine. The fact that they gave us a live HOH, though, did help that one. So I do think it was one of the better weeks for episodes, even though there were some low points. So I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, a 5 isn't that great. It's literally just average. So, I mean, we're sitting here I don't know if it deserves a 5, but really a 5 is not that great. So sure, whatever, give it a 5. That's fine. I don't care.
The drops got a 4.1 this week. So that's actually lower than last week. People not super fond of the drops this week. And then the season as a whole has gone up to a 5.0.
Oh, okay. Wow,
making moves.
I think that's wrong. I think that's incorrect. I mean, for me at least, it's still below that because I don't know. I'm still completely disconnected. I don't feel a care, really. I just don't really care. And because it's very similar, and this is why I kind of fall off watching Survivor a lot of the times. Sometimes I'll be really invested and sometimes I'll just kind of fall off. It's because the live feeds keep you invested. And yes, I get it. I'm talking about the live feeds again. Whatever. I'm just going to mention it. But they keep you invested. They allow you to really fully get to know the players. You can choose what you want to watch. You don't have to be spoon-fed, you know, what the producers want you to see. And it just, I don't have any of that. So I'm just sitting here like barely knowing who any of these people are. I really don't care who goes home or who stays. And I don't really know the strategy that's going on behind any of this, as much as, like, you know, they even give me like the daily drops or whatever. It's like, or the drops, not the daily drops. It's just not sufficient. And I just I don't have any connection to anyone who's on the show. And that's unfortunate, because I know I'd be really connected to a lot of these players because they're really interesting characters and they're really fun, from the little bits that we do see. But it's not enough to pull me in. And so I forget that the show's on, which is crazy because I'm on a podcast about the show. I literally forget it's on until like, I'm like, oh geez. Okay. I need to get caught up. And then I just like binge watch a few episodes and I'm like, all right, here's what's going on. The only time I watch an episode live is when I'm going to be on the podcast that night. And that's so sad. I'm usually like clamoring to watch. I like cannot wait to like rush home from the office or like close up my work laptop to start watching Big Brother. And at this point, I literally am just like, I don't know. And it's so sad because this is my favorite show and it's just something that's like on the back burner, like on the wayside, and I just don't really care. So anyway, yes, in conclusion, a 5 is too high. This should be like a 3.0. And the only reason it's higher than a 1 is because of the cast. And I think what they're doing is great work. And I feel very sorry for them that they can't have the Big Brother experience that they should be having. Anyway.
I would say for me, like Big Brother in general, the average is usually like a 7. Because like Big Brother's a good show. But that's like including everything. The episodes themselves, I would say probably the average is about 5. Because the episodes are not as good as the show as a whole. And so in terms of episodes, like I would say the average for me, the episodes this week would probably be like a 3. You know, so we were getting there. And if 5 is the average episode, then and like the season as a whole so far, it's certainly not a 7. And I'd say it definitely would be tough to breach the 5 quite yet. I mean, I'm with you. I mean, like a morning like this where we're waiting on like big results, big veto results, big who's going to go up as the replacement results. This could determine who wins the entire season. You know, normally I'm like dreaming about it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, oh my God, what's going to happen? And
I like can't wait to check Twitter, or I can't wait to check the feeds or whatever to be like, okay, who won, what's going on. This one, I literally don't check it until like, the episode's coming on, or maybe like I'll listen to one of your updates and I'll be like, okay, that's what's going on. Very sad. Anyway, sorry to interrupt you.
What are you going to do? I also asked the audience to rate the competitions this week, and they gave the competitions a 4.6. Which, you know, we got some quizzes, which is good. I like the quizzes. I don't know what this veto competition was. Apparently, Kuzi was capable of winning it, even though she didn't. So that's probably a good thing. I would still say overall, it happens far too often that people go on immunity streaks like this. Ty being immune 4 weeks in a row, you know, it's not very surprising because the competitions remain kind of broken. For as often as we might get a quiz comp here or there, a comp that Ty doesn't automatically win here or there, the fact that there are still a few comps that he will just automatically win makes it so much harder for anyone else to break in. It's like, okay, so let's be generous and say Ty will automatically win 1 out of every 4 comps, which I think is generous because it's probably closer to 1 out of every 3, given his physical stature and the people remaining in the game at this point. He's the only big muscly dude left. And even when he wasn't, he was still beating Hope out because he's just that much more athletic than the other people. And sure, that should give you an advantage in certain competitions. But the problem is it gives you so much of an advantage that you basically can't lose at least, I would say, 1 out of every 4 competitions, which means that Tai should basically be immune, 1 out of every 4 weeks at worst. But the problem is that given that he has that guarantee, those other 3 competitions that he doesn't automatically win, I would say probably for 2 of them, he still has a distinct advantage in those competitions, like the candle one that he won in the safety chain. He's a lot taller and has longer limbs than the other players, and so he's going to have a much easier time winning that, getting his reach over, putting the candles on the thing. It's an advantage. It doesn't mean he automatically wins, but it's an advantage. So he's more likely to win those. And then the one competition where his physical stature is not going to give him an automatic win or an advantage, he still has probably at least an equal chance of winning that competition as well. The quiz comp, he was only 1 question behind. He is perfectly capable of winning those too. And that's where it really starts to like get you, because that's where it starts to be he's winning 4 weeks in a row because he's winning his guaranteed comp, he's winning his advantage comps, and he might even still win the equal comp because sometimes you just get unlucky like that. And that's why it's so important to be careful about the competition layout. And I feel like they have addressed this to some degree in the last couple of seasons. But as we saw with last season, the end game comps remain broken. And that's where we kind of are and are heading into. So just worth teeing that one up again.
Yeah. Yep. Like, you just gotta get him out early. I don't know.
This is like a perfect example of like they got out almost every single like physical person in the game, and until there was literally one left.
Coincidence, or not coincidence.
Sure, I'm not saying they necessarily did it on purpose, but like we're seeing a situation where they literally every big physical person in the game was taken out by like final 10. And or 9-ish, and but there's still one left, and how do you get that person out?
Right, because you don't have anyone to go against him.
Yeah,
because you don't have any physical threat to be against the physical threat. It just once you get to that point, it's like, oh, what do we do?
When's the last time we got to an end game and we actually thought like anyone could win these comps? Because I don't remember a time.
Yeah, I don't know.
Certainly pre BB21, I'll tell you that. So I just we'll see what happens with all of it. The audience gave the competitions a 4.6 this week. That's what I have to say about that. Okay. I asked the audience to rate Renee's HOH this week. They gave her HOH a 5.4, which I think is fair. I think she's done a pretty good job. I think that she's handled it pretty decently. I think keeping Kuzi off the block initially was the right call because it gives her more power in this situation. And it theoretically could have kept her relationship with Kuzi pretty good if things had gone right and Tai had lost. Tai wins, which is worst case scenario for her. It's unfortunate, but there's nothing she can really do about it. She's now using the fact that Tai has won and she's going to name a replacement. Instead of Kuzi already being on the block and this just being a gimme, she now gets to get something out of it. She's getting a deal out of Daniel for not putting him on the block. One that he may actually follow through with because it kind of makes sense for him to. So I think she's played it actually pretty well. The biggest issue I have with her HOH is that it's continued to... It hasn't done anything to repair her relationship with the other girly pops. They continue to talk about wanting her gone as early as next week, which is not good, and she needs to recognize that and do something to rectify it. I do think, though, that she is making the correct strategic decision for her game, targeting Tai and then Kuzi. I do think, for as much as people want, and maybe even me, want Kuzi to stay, I don't think it makes any sense for her game to go after Daniel or Anika, or even the girly pops at this point, leaving both Tai and Kuzi in the game, knowing that Tai is going to keep Kuzi around because he wants her around, is just not the right play. And so I think she is, I think she's doing it. I think a 5.4 is pretty fair. Maybe even a little higher, but she's she's not doing enough to solve her end game problem, which is her biggest pressing problem right now.
Is there an argument to be made that she should be instead like breaking up that little foursome thing of Daniel and Anika and Cece and Shania, like targeting Anika or Daniel?
I think the better way to do that is by what she's doing, which is making a deal with Daniel on the side, saying, "Hey, I'm going to keep you around. I know that Shania and Claudia are a pair. You know that Shania and Claudia are a pair. If you, even if this is unsaid, basically what she is saying is, if you and Anika are a pair, why would you go down to 4 with both Shania and Claudia when you can go down to 4 with me and one of them who, I'm not as locked in with Shania and Claudia as they are with each other. And if we make a secret deal on the side, then you have more options. I have more options. That makes a lot more sense. And
But
that's
then
a
doesn't it
better
make
way to split
sense
them up, I think.
to try and get Anika out? Like, doesn't it make more sense? Like, maybe not directly, like not so that Daniel knows that she's targeting Anika, but just like trying to get the votes to keep Kuzi and get Anika out so that way Daniel.
Oh boy.
Oh no.
To address her question, from my perspective at least, I just don't see how that makes sense for her, because again, like you don't need. Wait, it's Mary. Is Mary
No,
actually frozen? Okay. I was like, oh no, now it is me. That was good. That was good. That was very frozen. Anyway.
Wait, but okay, wait. Can I get? I want to know the answer to my question, which I don't know if you ended up hearing.
So I think what you're saying is, wouldn't it make sense to free Daniel up by taking out Anika? Is she frozen?
Oh my god! Oh, no, she's there. It's there.
No, I hear it. I hear it.
Oh, this
sorry,
podcast
I'm so sorry. Just keep
a
going.
great
My internet is
representation
so
of the
bad.
mess that is this show. To free Daniel up by taking out Anika, I think the issue there is that like Daniel isn't really somebody that needs to be freed up. How many of these endgame comps is Daniel going to win? That like you need Daniel to be solely with you. In my opinion, what you need Daniel for is just have him aim in the direction of other people generally, so that if he wins that one comp here or there, it's not coming at you. By taking out Anika, again, you're leaving Kuzi and Ty in the game, and with Ty potentially like in a spot where he could win out and working like very closely with Kuzi. If you take out Anika and Ty starts taking out Claudia, Shania, or Daniel, you start really running out of people quick that you can work with and that you can go to the end with. And that can compete with Ty and Kuzi, who are probably the two best competitors in the game right now. So I think it's way too dangerous to leave the both of them in the game. On top of that, taking out Anika is so bad for her resume, in my opinion. She really needs things on her resume. She is very poorly received on the jury right now. People don't think she's done anything. And so by taking out Ty or Kuzi, she at least gets a big name. I don't think currently it's going to be enough, but it's a start. Whereas taking out Anika would look super weak, I think, and make her seem like she really just kowtowed to what the great players in Kuzi and Ty made her do. I mean, I can see where people would make the argument, because I do think it's worth considering, given that there are two pairs. But I don't personally think it makes enough sense.
Yeah, I guess, or even like trying to get like a pair of your own, like to like pair up with Kuzi and be like, look, let's work together or something, like trying to split up a pair, but also make your own pair. And instead it's like, oh, I'm just going to get out Kuzi or, Ty, and they're both alone, essentially alone, quote unquote.
What she really needs is for one of Shania or Claudia to leave so that she can pair up with the other, preferably Shania. I think that's her best win condition. And I think she could be heading toward that, where it's like, okay, if I make this deal with Daniel enough to the point where he is actually considering it, and then Daniel decides he's not going to take me out in the event that maybe Ty is either gone or wins a veto, and instead the next biggest target is Claudia, and then maybe Daniel takes out Claudia for me, now that's perfect, because now Daniel has betrayed Shania. Shania has nowhere else to turn but to Renee, and Daniel can't compete in the next HOH or whatever it is. So that's kind of like best case scenario for her at that point. And those kinds of things just don't happen with Kuzi and Ty still in the game, I think. But we'll see. I still think it's a really tough road for Renee overall. I mean, despite the fact that the girly pops think that she will win in a final two against them, given what we've heard from the jury so far, it's I believe, to quote Hope, Negatron on when it comes to Renee. It's not gonna happen. So we'll see. I did ask the audience, who do you want to be evicted this week? With, of course, the only options at this point being the Shady Bunch. 36% of the vote went to Kuzi. 36% of the audience wants Kuzi to be evicted. 35% of the vote would prefer for Daniel to be evicted this week. 29% wanted Anika. I think the audience tends to be fairly realistic about it, and I think they're also probably annoyed at Kuzi for taking the money. But a little surprising that Kuzi ended up beating out Daniel there.
I think also some of it has to do with who you want to win in the end, or who you don't want to win. If you don't want the girly pops to win, the best chance at this point for someone to beat them, it's probably Daniel.
Yeah.
Just based on who's actually on the block.
Well, I do also have a list of players ranked from the audience's favorite to their least favorite. There's only 7 players, so I'm just gonna ask you guys to go in order of who you think, how you think they're ranked here, starting from the top.
Starting from the top.
I don't know. I feel like I guess it would still be Kuzi, I think, but I don't know. Maybe people are kind of frustrated with her this week.
Yeah, I would probably think Kuzi, and then knowing the internet, followed by Daniel, and then Renee. That's what I would like.
Well, I can lock in Kuzi. Kuzi is number 1. You're both correct.
Okay. I would
Melissa,
say Daniel is number 2. I'd say Daniel as well.
Daniel is at number 2. That is correct.
And then I would say maybe Claudia. I saw like people online kind of saying they would stand her if they had feeds.
Probably. I think the one thing that people get annoyed with Claudia is the like sort of like back and forth with Ty thing. I think Claudia
people would be more annoyed with her with feeds at that. The fact that she's not so much.
True.
I don't know. I just know that I was so excited when Renee won.
Did you sound like this?
Yeah.
That soundbite's too long.
You are both incorrect. Number 3
Anika?
is Anika.
Yeah. Okay. Fine.
Who's number 4?
Claudia.
I mean, at this point, I feel like Ty and Shania are at the bottom, probably. I want Ty and Shania to be at the bottom. So I don't know. Let's go Claudia.
Mary, you went off of your previous pick.
It was Renee.
Oh no.
See, I felt like there would be some love, but I thought it might have been above Anika just because Anika's been so invisible. But
they're all actually very close in terms of points. It's Daniel is just a tiny bit above Anika, who's a tiny bit above Renee, who is a tiny bit above the next person, who is
Claudia.
Yes.
Okay.
And then bottom 2.
Yeah, I don't know. This is hard because I feel like, no disrespect to Shania, but like, has she done anything visible?
She used the veto on Renee.
Yeah, she used one veto on Renee.
I think that's the most impressive girly pop move of the whole game so far, personally.
I mean, it was like such a no-brainer.
Yeah, I know. That's the thing, is it wasn't like impressive or anything. It was just like, yeah, okay, you're gonna use an ally.
She didn't get convinced not to do the obvious move.
Yeah, she didn't get to she literally
give me a better girly pop move.
I don't know, Claudia winning an HOH.
She won a veto.
It's
a
fine.
Well, look,
I don't know.
I'll say it's Shanae and then Ty.
Yeah.
It's Shanae and Ty,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Big
Are they
drop
close?
off. No.
No.
Not even remotely.
So everybody just still really dislikes Ty. I felt like you could sometimes have that thing where it gets so late into the game that people are just like, you know what, Ty, you've hung in there this long. Good for you.
Yeah.
Let's
I
see
think he's
if you
starting to
can pull
get
it
some of
out.
that, especially since
Yeah.
he's not in power, so you don't get to see like
Right.
the
bad
ego
Ty.
as much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also thought that, I mean, I appreciated his, conversation, his strategy conversation with Claudia, where he was trying to explain to her with the little like candies, like there's 3 and 3 or there's 4 and 3. And then I'm over here. And if you take out one of their numbers, you can, bring me in on your end. And then you have an extra number and you guys are in the majority. And it was like, yes, please listen to him. He's right. That he's absolutely correct. And like she ended up being forced to make the right decision, I guess, by having Hope go home. But at first she did try to get Ty out. And I get that it's like the flashy move to put your showmance up, but I really don't think that was the right move. I don't think Claudia was making the right move there. And luckily for her, she ended up being forced into the correct move. So yeah, I did like Ty in that situation, because I just was like, yeah, he's absolutely correct. And he's showing it to her in a way that honestly, if it was me, it would make sense. And I'd be like, yeah, oh, okay. Yeah, this doesn't look good for us unless we, get one of their numbers out. But I don't know.
Remember that time during BB21 when Jackson was on the outs and he was against what was your name? Tommy and it's escaping me.
Christy.
He was against Christy, and people were like, I'm starting to not hate Jackson right now. That was before he went off on his stomp run. These things happen. These things happen.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh,
he,
for
he won
sure.
that like field trip, whatever it was, thing with the eggs, and people were like, yeah.
I mean, look, what it is if he just keeps being a lone wolf out there and they keep trying to target him and he keeps winning something, like he keeps winning a veto or he wins an HOH or something like that, like I do feel like you end up with the begrudging respect where it's like, he's really, he's winning all these things. Everyone's been trying to get him out. No one is successful. No one's been able to touch him,
It's
Maybe
a
he
perfect
does
metaphor
deserve
for
this win.
society. The structural elements that the producers put in place are advantaged toward Ty, which then you must respect him for winning those things that he is advantaged for, and it's a perpetuating cycle.
And the worst of it is, I don't even dislike him for his like comp ability. I'm not like mad that there's a guy out there winning the comps, except for, like Taran has said, the fact that that's the structure that weighs so heavily to that. I'm mad that every time he opens his mouth, he sounds
Ball game.
condescending and like, especially with Claudia, but with so many other people. It's the way he's played the social to the audience part of the game, the part where I just dislike him. You need to make me like you a little bit to root for you.
Yeah, true.
Which is why, like, the reason that I can like Kuzi and root for her, despite the fact that I also recognize all the things that she's doing negative in the game, are because there was a lot of time in the beginning when she was an underdog that was coming across more, oh, I want to root for this person, and not, get them off my screen.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, I think it's pretty undeniable that Kuzi has like an S tier social game, given how many people on the jury are like, yeah, she's the favorite to win for sure, and I would have taken her to the final 2 and lost. It's and I think that translates to the audience to some degree as well.
Yeah. Plus, you nitpick your faves more, because you get more upset when things go wrong.
Right, when they don't do it. Yeah.
All right, let's rate the players. Let's do it. This is the portion of the podcast, of course, where we rate the players from 1 to 10 based on how well we think they're doing in the game, based on what we are able to see. 1 being the worst, 10 being the best. And those prices or those numbers will influence the price on the realitystockwatch.com website where you can buy and sell shares of these players. This week, we will start with Anika, who got a 7 last week. And despite the fact that she's on the block, I feel very good about the fact that she is pretty unlikely to go home here, and pretty unlikely to go home really anytime in the near future. Basically, everybody in the game sees her as a GOAT, a final 2 GOAT, somebody to bring toward the end that they could both beat in a jury vote and beat in competitions. Now, they might be correct about beating her in competitions, but what they don't know, what they don't realize, is that Anika very likely beats every single one of them in a jury vote, except for Daniel and, of course, Kuzi, which could come as a very unpleasant surprise to anybody who decides that they want an easy win in the end. Very akin to what happened to Josh, except maybe not quite as intentional. So I actually think that Anika is in a pretty solid spot. With Kuzi leaving this week, she didn't have to do anything betray-y to make that happen, which means she will retain those crown votes. And again, with Kuzi gone as well, let's say that frees Ty up. Who is Ty bringing to the end? Probably Anika or Daniel. Anika if he wants an easy win. Daniel if he wants to be more quote-unquote loyal. And if he was genuine about wanting to bring Kuzi to the end, then he might choose Daniel. But still, Anika would not surprise me at all. I think she beats him. Shania obviously would take Claudia. But if she can't take Claudia, who would she take? Who's the next person she would take? It's not Renee. Don't think it's Ty. And if she could choose between Daniel and Anika, there's a chance Daniel could convince her, but I think she thinks she has a better chance of beating Anika. And then, again, Anika wins, I think. Same with Claudia. I think Claudia maybe stands a chance against Anika, but with 9 votes on the jury, as Relevant Moose has relevantly pointed out in the chat, Anika has 4 locked votes. Claudia would need every single other vote in the game to win against Anika in the final 2. And I think that's a tough sell, but not impossible, not completely impossible, but probably pretty hard, especially because Santina is probably going to vote with the crown. So I actually really like Anika's position overall. I think that Anika is in a very, very solid spot here. I'm honestly even tempted to move up on Anika, but I would personally just continue to give Anika a 7 here. I think she's perfectly safe and perfectly fine moving forward. The fact that people are just so unconcerned with her, but she is a jury threat. That's the position that a lot of these kinds of players who aren't being targeted would love to be in, and I think she's in it. Melissa, what do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think you're absolutely right that it's significant that she is not going to have to betray Kuzi, because I do feel like Kuzi would take that personally. And even if it's that she understands that Daniel's going to would vote to keep Anika because they're close, like the actual act of him doing that, I still think Kuzi would be fairly upset by that. So, I think if it came down to Anika versus Daniel, that would become relevant. Probably if it's Daniel versus someone else, it probably wouldn't be relevant. But just the idea that Anika doesn't have to do anything against the crown and has just found herself on the block in this situation.
Oh, so close. All right, Taran, what do you got?
I think she's going to go with a 7. Personally, I think she's going to agree with the 7. But I will. Here we go. She's back.
Sorry,
You're
guys. Yeah. So anyway, I'm giving her a 7 because she is on the block. So she can't go up for me.
Oh,
the Ty quote froze her again. All right, Mary, what are your thoughts on Anika?
The one thing that's holding me back a little tiny bit is if the girly pops are able to win the double HOHs.
Mm-hmm.
And Tai wins vetoes. And I think it's not that unlikely to picture that Tai is just winning almost any veto that he's in at this point.
Mm.
You pretty much have to get a back-to-back Daniel Anika. I mean, not necessarily. They could take out Renee. They could turn on her at that point, depending on who wins. But I think that that's probably the biggest worry. And I think the question just comes there of, do you expect Anika to win either the next HOH or veto, or Daniel to win that HOH?
Well,
It's possible.
from my perspective, like, it's still not the worst thing in the world for Daniel to go. Now, it's not a
Mhm.
given that Daniel would go. I don't think that's completely locked, despite the fact that they're talking about wanting to bring Anika far. There are arguments that Daniel could even probably make, which are if Tai wins the veto in a double eviction, and it's, say, Daniel versus Anika. Maybe they don't decide to turn on Renee because they can't do it themselves. They put up Daniel and Anika. Daniel could pretty easily argue, like, you need me. This guy is going to win out. You need the better competitor with you. And I think that's a decent argument that could change minds in the moment because I don't think they're super locked in or anything. But if Daniel were to go, she comes down to the final five. I don't think Tai would target her. Renee would probably be the closest to targeting Anika at that point, but I think that Claudia and Shania would both target um, Renee or Tai over her. So I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, I guess I'm picturing a spot where if Daniel's gone and then let's say Shania wins the HOH or Claudia, either probably let's say the more likely scenario, Claudia wins HOH and Tai wins the veto. So you're at a point where she has to put up, let's say, Renee and Anika. I could see a world where Shania is like, I can't vote Renee out. So I don't know. I think it's possible. I guess the thing that's holding me back the most is so far, based on what we've seen, Anika's the least likely to win any comp to save herself or put her in that better position. So I'm not gonna go up. I'm gonna go with a 6 just for that reason.
All right, a 6 from Mary. I will say, I think that probably the biggest fault in Anika's game right now is that her, as far as we know, her plan for the end game is the one thing that would make her lose, which is sitting next to Daniel in the final two, which is what she's actively trying to work toward. And also, I think if she were to change her mind and actively betray Daniel, I think she would lose his vote. I think that is very possible, given that Daniel has basically said, I'm definitely going to be petty and a bitter jerk. So that's potentially a hurdle that she might need to jump if she's actively playing. But I think that, again, my rating is mostly coming from her passive position. The audience, though, even lower on Anika than Mary. The audience gave Anika a 5.
Oh,
Not
that's
super
a little
fond
surprising.
of Anika's position. Explain yourself, audience. I don't know. I don't know.
I'm surprised by that. That's really low.
I think
Maybe because she's on the block.
I think she's on the block probably, and I think performance in competitions has been very low, being talked about as a go. I think people are forgetting that she has 4 locked votes in the final 2. I think maybe the view of the house guests are rubbing off on the audience a little bit. I don't know. Maybe they know something we don't. Anyway, let's move on to Claudia. Melissa, what are your thoughts on Claudia?
Well, I think that her HOH week, I think she was trying to make a decision or a move that wasn't super great for her, and then was forced to make a move that actually was good for her. So I think that is good. But I don't know. This one's a tricky one because this week I also think this is good for her as well. Certainly, because first of all, if Kuzi does go home, Kuzi was fairly upset with Claudia last week. I don't know if that's carried over or anything to this week, but that's something to consider moving forward. Is that now? Well, you don't really have to consider it because Kuzi might be going home. So I really don't know. Plus, she still has the girly pops still there. And even I don't know if Tai would go after Claudia. has he said anything about that? I haven't heard it, but
I
I
think
wonder.
he would.
You think
I think
so?
he would.
It's hard to
I think
say.
so.
I don't know. I mean, I guess like he would have reason to do it,
I mean,
but
the last time he talked to Claudia about his like what he would do, he told her he would target her. That was like days ago, but I assume he hasn't really changed from that. And I know he
yeah.
sees her as the biggest threat on the girly pop side. Um, so
Okay. I'm debating whether I want to give it like a 6 or a 7 because I'm just, I don't know. I guess because last week I gave her a 5, I'll bump it up to a 6 just to be conservative with it. I guess I don't know.
all right, Mary, what about you?
Yeah, kind of like Melissa said, I think that Claudia's biggest threat here is Ty winning the HOH. I think Claudia is also um someone that I could see Daniel potentially turning on. I don't think Daniel would turn on her before he wants Ty out, but I think if Ty won the veto and Daniel won the HOH, I think Claudia would be in some danger there. But I think if if the girly pops win, I think that she's in the best position out of the three of them to win the game. So yeah, I'm kind of down the middle on her too, but I think I'm going to go with a 6 as well.
All right, a 6 from Mary. The audience agreed. They gave
A
Claudia a 6 as well. Um, it's a tricky one, Claudia. You know, the field has really been laid wide open this week,
Mhm.
to a degree, with Kuzi leaving, with Ty still in the game, and with the way that things are panning out with the competitions. I do think that Claudia has the best chance to win of the girly pops still. That said, I do think she is also now probably the bigger threat of the girly pops. Again, because I do think that Ty would probably try to go after her if, say, she's on the block next to Shania, because Ty now recognizes that Shania and Claudia are a pair. He's not as concerned with Renee. Um, I could easily see him putting the both of them up. With the both of them up, what do Daniel and Anika decide to do at that point? Because they would control the votes. Would they take out Claudia as the bigger threat, or would they take out Shania to leave Claudia in the game to face off against Ty? I don't really know, but I could easily see Claudia leaving in the double. In fact, I could see almost everyone leaving in the double.
Yeah.
So that's kind of scary for your stock prospects this week. Be careful. Um, so it's tricky. If she survives the double, if she survives the double with Shania still there, then I think she's in a pretty good spot. But I'm still also concerned about things like, why is she so concerned about Renee when Renee is her ace in the hole? She should be cherishing Renee. Renee is amazing for Claudia. She's now won a competition. She's like this barrier between her and other people if she chose to make it seem like the fact that she's clomping on to Shania and not making it seem like she's as with Renee is so bad. She should be like, Renee is my best friend, actually. Make Renee the target. And instead, she's actively talking about maybe even taking Renee out over Daniel or Anika, which is just absurd to me. So that's just such missed opportunity. And I feel like that's sort of the story of Claudia's game, is just missed opportunity. She's had so many, and I feel like she always lets the opportunity slip by. But she still has those opportunities, and her position is not bad. And there's a reason why she's has the best chance to win of the girly pops, and it's because she has the best social game of the girly pops. I ultimately, I think I have to agree with the 6, but I could see this going up after the
Mhm.
double, and I could also see her being gone after the
Yeah.
double. So who knows? All right, let's move on to Daniel. Mary, what are your thoughts on Daniel?
Yeah, that's the hard thing. Going into a double, especially with this house layout,
Mhm.
it's really hard to give anyone a massively high score because they just could go so easily. Daniel, I think, is in a bit of danger in the double, like everyone else. I feel like Daniel has decent win equity with the jury at the moment. And he's got his sort of alliance with Claudia and Shania. So I think right now for Daniel, his danger spots. I was going to say Ty, but I do think that Ty is going to go after the girls first, probably.
Mhm.
So, that's really tricky. I think Daniel's danger spot might be like a Renee or Shania win, actually. So, I think due to that, he might be a little safer at this point, unless he gets put on the block with Anika. Um, trying to look at the rest of the house. If he's on the block with a girly pop, then there's only 2 others. And I think Anika and Ty would vote to save him. So I think he's actually doing okay at this point. So I'm gonna go with a 7.
A 7 from Mary. The audience agrees, and they also gave Daniel a 7. I gave Daniel an 8 last week, and I don't think he has played any worse. I think he's actually even, if anything, playing better this week, given the circumstances, which are pretty tough. But he's clearly holding on to his relationship with Kuzi while simultaneously betraying her in many ways. He is holding on to his relationship with the girly pops in a solid way. His position is holding. The position that he built is I'm almost starting to look at him like a Tommy in some ways. If we're gonna keep going to Big Brother 21 for some reason, where like I compared Tommy to that like Buster Keaton bit where like he's in the car and the car just like falls apart around him, but he just stays in the seat. Like things are falling apart around Daniel, but he built it this way for a reason, and he is the person safe inside as it's all falling apart around him. And so, like, he's still okay for now, but I don't think his position is quite as good as it was last week, given where things stand. The situation, the scenario where I could see him leaving, there are a couple of scenarios where I could see him leaving. One is theoretically this week, Kuzi pulls something out of a hat. Maybe there's something we haven't seen on the drops. It doesn't seem likely, but maybe for some reason he goes up instead of Kuzi. That's probably the least likely of these options. Number 2 in the double, Shania or Claudia win. They put up Ty and Anika or Daniel. Ty wins the veto, and even though they're thinking about targeting Renee, maybe they can't do it in the moment. It's too fresh. They don't have enough time to like go over the guilt about doing it, and so they ultimately decide that they can't do it, and they put up Daniel, and then they decide they want Daniel out over Anika. Those are not all impossible options, but it does require a few things to line up. So he should be okay, but it's not impossible he leaves. Then you have to look at, okay, what happens if they do take out Ty in the double? He is now, in a spot where, again, the girly pops, are they going to decide to target Renee? What does Renee do? He's got some leeway, but I think his grip on the girly pops has loosened a little bit. The fact that they are even considering keeping Anika over him is a sort of an indication that his relationship with them or his position with them has degraded a little bit. So all that to say, I'm going to give him a 7. I think that if last week he was far and away my pick to win this game, this week I think it's a lot more even overall, and I think that he's still in a good spot, but there are way more things that could go wrong for him. There are a lot of other outs at this point. So that's where I'm at with Daniel. Melissa, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that he's just positioned really well right now. And I think in terms of like everybody, it seems like people don't really want to take him out. Like, I think, yeah, there's totally a chance that he goes out in this double or anything like that. But in regards to like, if I'm looking at the board and I'm looking at everyone else who's there, I do think Daniel's playing the best game at this point. So I am going to stick with my 8, I think. But full well knowing that the double is coming up and it's a danger spot for everybody. But, I'm just going to stick with it.
There you go. All right, let's move on then to Kuzi. And I'll start with the audience on this one. The audience did barely get Kuzi to a 4 this week. A 4 for Kuzi. Now, I was at a 4 for Kuzi last week when she was just in danger of leaving, and not pretty much leaving. She also didn't kind of throw a veto last week. So that's not great. Now, I can't give her a 1 personally, because it's not a complete done deal that she's gone. And if she's not gone, she still has a very decent chance to win the whole game. This is not a scenario where it's like she played horribly, she's almost definitely gone, and even if she wasn't gone, there's no way she's winning. So I'm not going to go down to a 1. But could I do a 2? Maybe. I think that might have to be where it is, considering the veto play. If not for the veto play, I'd probably go with like a 3. But yeah, although you know what, I will give her some credit for avoiding the block in the first place, and for making it at least somewhat interesting. As you know, Renee wasn't like an automatic "I'm putting Kuzi on the block." She is worried about doing it. So, and that's sort of Kuzi's game in a nutshell. She's just so good in some aspects of the game and then makes these mistakes in other aspects of the game. If I can give Hope a 3 the week he's leaving, I can give Kuzi a 3 the week she's leaving. I'll give her a 3. Melissa, how about you?
Yeah, not great for Kuzi this week. I mean, I don't even think it was great for Kuzi last week. So that's not great. But then also, you know, the fact that she took the money when she should have really gone for the veto is not great. And I just, the fact that she's likely going home this week is not good. And I think like, God, I gave her a 3 last week, so I'm gonna have to give her lower this week. So I am gonna have to give her a 2, but I hate it. I don't want to give her that.
All right, Mary.
Oh, it's rough, but I just can't look past the facts. I think that there is a, you know, if this was a show where we had feeds right now and she worked her butt off to stay off the block and something wild happened and everything turns around, then, you know, you'd want to give her the credit if we thought that that was what was going to happen. But based on the drops that we have seen, based on the direction it's going, it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. I really can't rank someone high who knew that they were probably going home if they got on the block and didn't do everything they could to win the veto. Like, that's just, I don't know. That's either behavior where you think you can talk yourself out of something and just don't see it, or just didn't think you were that, you know, in that much danger in the first place. It's got to be a 2. It's sad, but it's got to be a 2. And if she somehow stays off the block, I think she's immediately going home in the double. So
that is.
I think that's the other thing is I think that even if she stays, she's in the worst position to go home.
Part of me was still thinking like, what if we're not seeing something? What if she miraculously stays and gave her such a bad
that
rate?
would be
But you're totally right though.
awesome.
Like she
even
would
if
probably
she
just
does.
leave in the double.
Yeah, she would have to win, take out tie, and then win again, but the veto. Like, that's the only thing that she probably could do to, I don't know.
All right. Well, let's move on to Renee. Oof. Okay, Renee. Last week I gave her a 3. She got a 3 overall. As I talked about, I think she's played this week pretty decently, but her position overall is still really bad. I think. Now, there's a chance that how she plays this week and ultimately the result of this week could really improve her chances in the jury, which would be huge. But the problem is that unlike Anika, she is basically the opposite of Anika, where everyone sees Anika as an easy to beat person in the final 2, but secretly Anika has basically everyone beat. Renee's the opposite, where everyone thinks that she has everyone beat. Well, not everyone, but the people that matter, the people she's working with, Shania and Claudia, think that she has everyone beat when secretly she loses to everyone.
How do they think that? It's crazy. It's like, I don't know where they're getting that from, but okay.
It's rough. It's rough stuff. So I think she's playing pretty well this week in terms of strategic game. It's again, we have a lot of players this season have like big flaws where it's like Kuzi's strategic decision making at times has not been there, but her social game is incredible. You have Claudia, who has a pretty decent social game, also maybe some strategic gaps. You have Ty, who's actually fairly decent strategically, but pretty bad social game, and just like gets in his own way. You have Shania and Renee, who are both, I think, decent strategically at times, but maybe have like maybe Shanea's not super great at reading people, but Shania has a slightly better social game than Renee, but Shanea's social game is also kind of lacking. And then you got like Daniel, who's very good strategically, very good socially, but competitions have been lacking, and you know, having allies that will win competitions is also lacking for Daniel. It's just like there's always something, and with Renee, it's definitely the social game where she's losing votes and simultaneously people think she has votes, which is not a good place to be. I'm gonna go up from the 3 for sure. I think this is a big week for her, but until I think anybody is willing to take her to the final 2 and she has any chance of winning in a final 2, I can't go even neutral on Renee. I have to go a 4.
Yep, I totally agree. I mean, I do think that this week was good for her, but I don't think that it really helps her in the long run. I mean, it doesn't hurt her in the long run, but I just don't know if I see her winning. I really don't. So because I don't know where she goes from here. So I mean, who knows what's gonna happen in the double, but at this point, I totally agree. I can't really go up to a 5, so I am going to go up to a 4 as well.
All right, Mary.
Yep. Same thing you both said. I think that she would have to, if some of the people who are in the game now left the game still feeling like she has votes in the jury and somehow managed to convince the jury of it instead of what will probably happen, which is the jury going, no, you got to be kidding me. No one's interested in voting for Renee. Then I don't really see her winning, but I do think that she played better this week than previous. So 4.
All right. Well, the audience is actually a little higher on Renee than us. They did go with the 5 for Renee.
Wow.
There you go.
There
And
you
same
go.
with last week as well. We all bumped up 1.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah. Wow, interesting.
All right, let's move.
Literally like a squeaky dolphin. Okay.
Has Renee given us the best sound bites?
Every time you play the sound effect though, like I don't know what it is, and I get like lost for a second. I'm like, wait, what is that? I thought it was my dogs or something. Nope.
All right, let's move on to Shania. Melissa, what are your thoughts on Shania?
I think that this is obviously a good week for Shania, but I just don't know if I see Shania winning as well. Similarly to Renee, I don't know if I see her winning, but she does have a better, I think, an easier path to get to the end than Renee does. Although even so, I don't even know if it's that simple for her. But yeah, I once again, I'm still like, I don't know what to do with Shania. So I feel like I'm just gonna have to stay at my 5, I think, just because I don't really know. Still. And I feel like it's been the same every week for her, where it's like I'm just like, I don't know how to read her. I don't know. So yeah, 5 for me.
All right, Mary.
I'm torn between a 4 and a 5. Similar to Melissa, I don't see her winning against any. I mean, maybe Renee. I mean, I guess
maybe Renee, because like
That's about it.
probably Dan would vote for her.
But I think it's also like a pretty weird path for her to get to the end to where it's her and Renee.
Yeah.
So, sorry, go ahead, Taran. If you
No,
had something.
it's hard not to interject because this is the frustrating thing for me with Shania, which is that just today on the drop, she said it would be so demoralizing to sit next to Renee in the final two because I
Why?
know I would lose for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm
So it's
like,
like,
that's the one person you need to be
Oh,
sitting next to,
no.
Shania. The one
That's so
person. And that's
bad.
the one person you're like, I can't sit next to that person. No.
and
What are
what's
you
the worst
doing?
is because of that attitude, the only way that you get Shania and Renee at the end is if Renee makes that decision to take Shania. So that doesn't
Yep.
look great for Shania either. I do agree with Melissa that she's probably one of the most safe people coming into this next week. It's hard to think of a whole lot of scenarios where she's sitting next to almost anyone on the block and they want to vote her out. So she's insulated herself relatively well. Unfortunately, it's because she's not really a target or a threat to win the game, which is why she's so safe. It's like I don't think she's playing a 5 game is the problem. I think that her, besides, as Tara mentioned, her one glorious move of using the veto when she should have. I recognize that people were telling her not to, but like you got to ignore that. I feel like I'm going down on like what all the audience likes and has, but I'm gonna have to give her a 4. It's so late in the game and I don't see her winning. Like it's rough. It's rough.
It is. The audience does disagree. They agree with Melissa. They gave her a 5,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
agree with you. I gave her a 4 as well. I
Okay.
think that, like Renee, she is like putting herself in a position where it's just like, again, like the one person I think she has the best chance of beating is Renee, and that is the one. She would go to the end with Daniel before she goes to the end with Renee. That's absurd. And like she would also go to the end with Anika before she goes to the end with Renee, which is more understandable a mistake, but still a mistake. And so it's just like, you know, she's gonna go with Claudia, and I think Claudia beats her too. And so it's like, okay, well, Shania, you have to lose the competitions then. You have to hope that you get to the final 3 with Renee and somebody, and that she picks you after she wins. And it's like that's so hard to get to. Now there's a lot of game left to be played, which is why I'm not going lower. But yeah, I mean, rough read here. All right, let's finally talk about Ty. Mary, what are your thoughts on Ty?
Okay, Ty. Here's the thing. Ty is even if Ty was aligned with everybody, I think it's unavoidable to look at him and not say we got to get him out, or otherwise he's going to be sitting in one of those final 2 chairs just because of his win equity, which is not win equity for comps, by the way, which is not bad because he probably won't win the games. Like in some ways, fine, just let him have one of those spots. You lock in your win against him, but you're drastically decreasing the amount of chances you have to sit in the end yourself. So because of that, I think that a lot of people are probably going to just keep trying to get Ty out every single vote. So he's always going to be someone who's potentially nominated. He also has the highest chance of winning the veto. So that, there's that. So I guess my question is, do I feel like he's going to win the next HOH or veto, or next 2? I mean, he's just been doing so well at the vetoes. Like, it's hard to think of who's beating him at this point, but it is possible. And if he doesn't win, he's probably going home. Geez. Okay, this might be the first person I'm doing this on. I'm going to go up to a 4 just because I think that he's got the most chance of keeping himself safe. I feel bad because it's like I still just don't think he's going to win though. But I felt bad for going down on every single other person from previous week.
Well, the audience actually went up as well, even higher than you did. They gave him a 5.
And that's just absurd.
They went up. It was
That's
close,
really
but they went
high.
up to a 5.
All
on
right.
Ty.
All right, audience, Stockwatch players. I hope you all win it on Ty.
Maybe some insider trading. I don't know. No, I think that here's the thing. He's definitely in a better position than last week. I mean, that's undeniable. He's made it through one more week of being targeted, and he's still alive. The thing about Ty is that the further in the game he gets, the easier it is for him to survive. The fewer people he needs to compete against. He needs to lose 2 competitions in a row to leave. And against this field, that's going to actually be kind of tricky, I think. Now, can he pull it off? Another, 6, 5, 4, 3, 4 weeks in a row? That's going to be tough, but not impossible. But once he gets there, he also needs to win a jury vote. And I think that he might have a chance against people like Renee or Shania, but there's a decent chance he loses to Claudia. There's a very decent chance he loses to both Daniel and Anika. And I don't really see Ty actively looking to take Renee or Shania at this point. I think he feels the fact that he's working so closely with Kuzi and telling Kuzi he's going to take her to the end tells me, whether he's being truthful about that or not, that he feels pretty confident that he can beat anybody in the end. And that he would just take the person I don't think he wants to see Renee in the final 2. I don't think he wants to see Shania in the final 2. So I think he's going to have a tough time. So I also went with a 4. I mean, it's a better position than last week, and the problem is I don't think I can go much higher until I think he has a chance to win the game. But I could see this moving up again, especially since by the time we rate next week, the double will have passed if he survives that, and then maybe he's won another competition, maybe another veto or HOH by the time we do this, and he's guaranteed final 4. Yeah, he's definitely going to move up. So we'll see, I guess. Melissa, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, so first of all, I'm already impressed because he was able to keep himself in the game once again after people were trying to target him each time. So, that's already impressive. And then, moving into the double, I could absolutely see him winning a competition for each of the rounds and staying in the game. And then, I do see him winning because, so here's the thing, he gets to the end by basically winning out. That's really how he gets there. And if he does do that, that's something that people respect. I think that will get him a lot of credit, like, hey, we've been trying to get him out since a long time ago. And he's just been winning week after week and making it absolutely impossible for us to take him out. I think people would give him the votes. I think that there's a few people who might beat him, like Daniel or Claudia, but people like Renee and Shania and even Anika, like if she's not winning anything, I could see
the crown votes Anika, I think.
I don't know. I could see a situation where he can make the argument, depending on how it all plays out, obviously. But I do think he could make the argument, and maybe someone like Hope, who's like all about comp wins and stuff like that. Maybe someone like Hope decides,
Hope is too loyal. This is shade. This is not. Hope doesn't deserve this.
It's possible. Look, and I'm not saying it's wrong. Like, I think if somebody makes it to the end, like Kevin Martin style, like you have to give them some sort of credit. Obviously, maybe that's not the person you want to represent your season. And I think that will play a huge part in this. I mean, especially because it's like he almost quit the game. I mean, people would absolutely bring up the fact that he almost quit the game. And that like he was not a nice person and we don't want this to represent our season, but sometimes you end up with, a choice that you have to make in the end, and who knows? So I don't know. We'll see, but I'm going to give him a 4 as well.
I think Hope votes Negatron on that one.
Never know.
All right. Well, there it is. That is the stock watch for the week. We had some people moving down and some people moving up. Renee and Ty moving up, and then the Shady Bunch moving down is pretty much about where we're at there. So there we have it. That's this week in Big Brother Canada 11. By the time we talk next time, we will be at the final 5, heading into the final 4. And we will know 2 of the people in the final 4, likely, assuming we get drops at that point, which is...
That's wild. I cannot believe we're this close to the end of the season. Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah. So stay tuned. It's gonna be a tricky decision for where you want to put your money this week for sure. And in just over 2 weeks from now, we are going to be live in Toronto for the finale of Big Brother Canada 11. So make sure you head over to robhasawebsite.com/Toronto to get your tickets now. We're gonna have lots of alumni there. It's gonna be a great time. So come and hang out with us in Toronto. And any final thoughts on the week?
I am very excited for the double. I know that's not this, like, whatever. I'm very excited for the double. I cannot wait to see what happens. Double evictions are always my fave. So I'm hoping for some fun action there. Yeah, we'll see.
Doubles stress me out, so
yeah, I know they do. They can either be like, I mean, most of the time it's me pacing around my house like as it's going on, just like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. I don't know if it'll be like that this time around, but yeah, it's still fun.
All right, well, we'll see what happens. But thank you all for joining us this week for the Stockwatch Roundtable podcast. You can, as always, find me over on Twitch, twitch.tv/Taran Armstrong, watching these episodes live with all of you. I will be watching the double live on Thursday night. So that should be a great time. Come and hang out, watch it with me. And we will be live every day to recap the drops, and after every episode to recap what goes down on these episodes. Find some Goose Goose Duck videos over on YouTube. Hang out, have a good time. Mary, what do you got going
on? Tomorrow, I'm going to be on an episode of Crime Scene that I recorded last week. So check that out if you're interested in hearing me talk about the Boston Marathon. And Kowski Cast is going strong with the final season of Riverdale. So myself and Kirsten McInnes had a really fun talking about the last episode. So check that out if you're interested in the show. And the way we talk about Riverdale, it's the kind of show where you don't really need to watch along in order to enjoy the podcast.
All right. Well, that's what we have for you. Then you can, of course, find Melissa at It's Melissa. 3 A's. Thank you all for joining us.
That never gets old.
We'll see you next time.
Good song.